Hey friends, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. So it has been a minute since I have filmed, so hopefully I am not too rusty, but life has just kind of gotten away from me in August, so I've posted essentially nothing. But I'm hoping September is when we get back on track, since this is like my favorite time of year to make content, is like the last 3 to 4 months of the year. So I am really, really excited to post all of the videos, and we are kicking it off with September's releases. For whatever reason, I have very few books to talk about for September. Historically, September is one of the biggest release months of the year, and for whatever reason, I only have 11 books to talk about, which is ridiculous considering how many books I had for the summer months. But for some reason, I don't have a ton to talk about in September. You might hear some like scuttering around in the background. The kitten is playing with some plastic springs and just having the time of her life. So we're gonna let her do her thing. But let's get right into all of the books I'm gonna talk about. As always, this is gonna be broken down by release date. If you haven't seen the previous months, I will link those in the cards and down in the description box. I have one for every single month. So starting on September 6th, I have 3 books that I'm excited for. The first one is Angelika Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne. I am tentatively excited about this one. I think the premise sounds really cool. However, this has some pretty mixed / negative reviews over on Goodreads, so I'm going into it with minimal expectations. But the premise for this one is Angelika is Victor's sister, and after she sees his experiments, she decides that she's going to take her love life into her own hands and create her perfect love match. And she ends up resurrecting this guy that she is naming Will, and Will is convinced that he needs to figure out what happened in his past. She agrees to help him figure it out, and along the way she meets another guy, and it is kind of like a love triangle, her trying to figure out if she made the right decision making a love interest or if she was too hasty. And it is her figuring all of that out. Like I said, this premise sounds really cool. I love the idea of a romance based off of Frankenstein, but it has been getting some negative reviews. So we shall see how it works out. After that, we have Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. This is the author of the Veronica Speedball series, which is one of my favorite series. And this is a whole new story. I don't know if this is going to be a series or if it's just a standalone, but it is completely unconnected to the Veronica Speedwell series. This is set in modern day, and we are following these 4 60-year-old women who have been assassins for the last 40 years. And now they are kind of being pushed out because their methods are like, they're not flashy, they're not like the go-to, they're old school. And so they are being pushed out and they are being sent on this like retirement vacation. But when they get there, they realize that their company has turned on them and is trying to take them out. So they need to band together and figure out how they can save themselves from this hit. I love Deanna Raybourn's writing. Maggie. Baby, we put the kitten outside momentarily. This sounds like so much fun, and I do have an audio arc of this one, so I do plan to listen to this one as soon as I can because I'm very, very excited to give this one a try. And then the last book for this day is Do You Take This Man by Denise Williams, which I will read anything that Denise Williams writes. Her books are so fun. She writes these really, really good, light-hearted, sweet, amazing romances. I love her writing. I love her characters every single time. We are following a heroine who is a divorce attorney, and somehow she ends up officiating a wedding in a park, like randomly one day, and the video goes viral. And she keeps getting requests from people to officiate their weddings, and she kind of goes with it. And she ends up having to work with this ex-pro football event coordinator who is now pivoting into the wedding industry, and the two of them are planning this big wedding. It is like an enemies to lovers, opposites attract romance between the two of them, and I think it sounds so cute. I love, like I said, everything that Denise Williams writes. I have read all of her romances and they're all amazing. On to September 9th, which is not a Tuesday, but this is a release day for some indie romances. And we have Seraph by Lily Mayne coming out this day. This is book 6 of her Monstrous series. And this whole series is set in an apocalyptic world where monsters have risen and society has essentially crumbled. And now there's these little pockets across the US of like civilization, and the center of the US is just kind of like a dead zone. This entire series is MM Monster Romances. and they are amazing. And I'm very, very excited for this one. I don't want to read the synopsis since it is book 6 in the series, but this series is somehow really, really sweet with like a creepy apocalyptic setting, but it's still somehow monster romance, but like heartwarming, and I love it. I have absolutely nothing for September 13th. I don't know if it's a dead date or like it's just I'm not into anything on that day, but I have nothing. So on to September 20th, there are 2 books that I'm excited for. The first one is Vanessa Jared's Got a Man by LaQuette. I'm so excited for this one. This sounds so, so good. It is a second chance romance, and we are following a woman who's in her 40s. I'm really glad we're starting to get romances with women in their 30s and 40s. I feel like for a while, we only saw romances of like 22-year-olds, and it's like we don't all fall in love at 22. So I'm really excited for this movement into women of all ages getting romances. What a concept. And after she gets out of a divorce, she forms a club of single women that are all there to like support each other. And on the 2-year anniversary of this club, she gets someone that shows up at her door, and it is a sheriff, and he wants to recruit her and the club to stop his sister's wedding. He doesn't think his sister's fiance is a good guy, and he needs her help to stop the wedding and show her that she is making a bad decision. And along the way, they fall in love. And I am just very excited for this. Like I said, everything about this sounds so, so cute. And then the last one for this day is a sequel, and that is The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is the sequel to The Ex-Hex. I will preface this by saying I am slightly disappointed by the synopsis for this one. We met our heroine of book 2 in The Ex-Hex. She is the cousin of this heroine. Gwyn was having a romance with the mayor of this small town, and I thought it was going to be their romance. I thought we were going to get a witchy sapphic romance, and I was very, very excited for it. Unfortunately, this is not a romance between the two of them. They end up breaking up at the beginning of this, and it is an MF romance. We do still have a bisexual main character, but it is an MF romance, and I'm like mildly disappointed. I was really hyped for a sapphic witchy romance, but I do love this small town. I thought the writing was really fun and lighthearted. This is kind of like a Halloween Town meets Stars Hollow sort of feel, and I'm excited to give it a try. Comes out super soon. I'm not going to go into the synopsis for it because it is part of this series. And then another indie romance coming out on September 24th is Darn It All by Evie Mitchell. This is book 3 in the All Access series. I love Evie Mitchell. I love this series. This entire series follows a group of female friends who all have different chronic illness, disabilities, things like that. I know nothing about this book, like absolutely nothing. Evie has posted the synopsis over on her Instagram, but I haven't read it, and it's not on Goodreads, so I haven't seen the synopsis yet. But this cover is adorable. I love this series. This series has the cutest covers, but it is surprisingly steamy. I love this group of friends. They are all so supportive and so wonderful. And I can't wait to pick up another Evie Mitchell book. And then the last release day of the month is September 27th, and this is the one that has the most books coming out. I have 4 books that I'm excited for on this day. First is Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. I actually talked about this one in August's releases because originally this was supposed to release in early August. It got pushed back, but this is a mystery thriller from Adrienne Young. It is her first adult book, and it has a very like classic mystery plot, but with a magical spin on it. So we are following a heroine whose best friend was murdered when she was young. Somebody was found guilty of the murder, and then years later, she is still living in this small town, and the person that was accused of the murder returns, and he insists that he's not guilty, and the two of them have to figure out what happened to their friend. And it is a slightly fantastical sort of story, mystery, thriller. Very excited for this one. I love Adrienne Young's writing so much, and I think it's going to translate really well to this type of like slightly magical thriller type of story. And then we have Witchful Thinking by Celestine Martin, and I'm obsessed with this cover. I don't know why, but like there's something about it that just like it does it for me. And the premise of this one also sounds adorable. I am loving all of the witchy romances that started coming out last year, and it seems to be carrying into this year. and I just love it. We are following a heroine who is a witch in this little seaside town, and she ends up accidentally cursing herself, or a spell goes awry or something like that, and she's unable to say no. And so she has to say yes to everything. And then her high school crush lives across the street from her, and he needs help unjinxing his house, and she has to say yes. And the two of them start to spend some time together and obviously fall in love. And I just think that this is such a fun premise. Like, obviously we've seen the whole can't say no premise before, but I think that mixed with witchy and like a small seaside town and romance sounds absolutely adorable. Then we have House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson, which might be one of my most anticipated books for this latter half of the year. I am so excited for this book. The Year of the Witching is one of my favorite books. It's one of my favorite horror books of all time. And this is another cover. Like this, I want this artwork hanging on my wall. It is stunning. I can't tell if it's vampire-esque. I'm assuming it is. But we have our heroine who is a blood maid, and essentially she works for the upper class people as food. And she is kind of like pulled into this society, and it is a gothic novel about her trying to uncover the secrets of the house and the family that she works for, and I just cannot wait. Alexis Henderson is another one that has just beautiful writing, and I love the way that she handles horror. And I can't wait for another book. I will read absolutely anything that she writes. And then lastly, we have a YA horror book that is Secrets So Deep by Ginny Meyers Sain. I am not the biggest YA reader in general anymore. However, I read this author's debut novel, Dark and Shallow Lies, and I loved it. I ended up giving that one 5 stars, which never happens for me with YA horror. So when I saw this author was releasing another sort of paranormal-esque horror book, I was like, well, obviously I need to read it. So it says it is a paranormal thriller about a 17-year-old girl returning to camp to uncover the truth of what really happened 12 years ago, the night that her mother drowned. That's all I need to know. It sounds really good. Like I said, I loved the way that this author mixed fantasy and paranormal magical elements with the horror elements, and that is like one of my favorite pairings ever. And that is it. That is all 11 books that I am planning to pick up in September. Let me know if any of these are on your TBR. Let me know if there's any that I missed. I feel like every time I make these videos, like an hour later, I realize that something else is coming out. So let me know if I'm missing anything. Leave it down in the comments, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye.